So that kind of takes us to our next topic here, and I think it kind of meshes in with some of the other things we've talked about is, when is attribution helpful? When does it matter? What are your thoughts?
I am not a fan of attribution, and this happens all the time.
Now, just to clarify, so there's attribution to the attackers. There's also attribution in the context of threat intelligence sharing, that is who provided the information. I assume you're talking about
Attacker. Yeah, most
right?
of the time you're talking about attacker. Now, from a personal interest standpoint, and the fact that I love spy movies, I love attribution. So I love reading about attribution. I love discussing attribution. That part of it's great. And I would also say that again, going back to Vegas odds, I think most of the time your gut feeling on the attribution is probably right. But I think, of course, what most people always point out is that it's so difficult to prove attribution.
It is very true.
And what you really have to ask yourself, and this happens all the time in the DDoS world, right? Executives always want to know who was attacking us, right? What did we do, or what, and it just, especially in the case of DDoS, you should be asking yourself that in terms of risk. Did we do anything? And you can learn lessons from that.
Right.
Right? Did we tick off anonymous? That sort of scenario. And we see it all the time, in both locally, globally. But what is that going to change? Right. You still have to defend against the attack. Now, if it's going to change the way you do business, or the way you assess risk, or the way you interact, great. Then that's fine. But if you're just wanting to know because you just want to know, then again, it's personal and it's fun. But the reason why I say all this is because the amount of time, essentially the money that it takes to do proper attribution, or any attribution, is intense.
It is.
And so, is it great when vendors do it for you? Sure. And now, if I'm a CISO of an enterprise, do I think I need to be wasting my time on attribution? Not really, because I have to scale to a zillion attackers, right? I have to scale to nation state and cyber criminals and internal and whatever. And if I'm wasting my time on one attribution over here, I'm not spending all the time trying to scale, to a real-time attacker base that is global and massive. So that's why I say I don't particularly like it, right? So I like it and dislike it,
right?
And it all depends on context.
Yeah.
Do I think enterprises should be doing attribution? Probably not, because I think it's probably a waste of resources. So unless you just have lots of budget,
so
to spend on such things.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Just to take it in a couple little different directions here. So in one sense, it's not necessarily knowing who specifically attacked you that is perhaps valuable, but understanding what the motivation was.
It could be why, right? Yeah,
right. Why?
So if you look at sporting events all over the world, right? The Olympics or World Cup or the F1 race in Bahrain. Right. If anyone disagrees with anything that's occurring anywhere in the world, you can probably see some sort of reflection on the internet, right? Especially it has to do with politics and that sort of scenario, right? And so, it's probably not going to be a big surprise when there's a DDoS attack or someone's dumping docs on all of our employees because, right? And so again, understanding the risk, that's what's important.
Very sure.
If it has to do with decision making and understanding why, then next time you go say something in the press or you go participate in something or say something, whatever, it could influence that. But knowing that someone on the other side of the world and what their name and address is, what are you going to do? Call Interpol?
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Attribution has value if you're willing to prosecute or take some other external action to shut them down.
Or if you use that to learn their techniques and what they're, how they're going about.
What their technical capabilities are, how in depth are they, how sophisticated.
And that is where people would tell you that's exactly what it's great for, and it is.
Right.
It is.
Right.
The point would be, what's the ROI to get there?
Yeah. So as individuals or corporate America, probably doesn't pay off a whole lot unless there's something really staring at you.
And it could be situational. You're absolutely correct, though. If you could give me attribution that gave me the TTPs of what I'm up against, now that's a win, right? Now, I want to know their tools. I want to know their techniques. I want to know what I'm up against.
Right.
I don't necessarily have to know who I'm up against, though, to know what I'm up against.
Exactly.
It just so happens that it many times will go reverse. If you know who, you know what.
If you know who, you can figure out what, where you...
But it's, again, I think it's a question of ROI. Yeah. I like it when the vendors do it for you. which is also difficult. But if you can get your vendor to do it for you, but the problem, of course, is a vendor. You go public and you say, oh, well, we think this, and then everybody blasts you. You don't know that for sure. Where did you get that info?
Gee,
Even the
when did
government
that
has
happen
problem.
recently?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens every single time. So, like, it's a catch-22 situation. And funny enough, that's why maybe the trust groups are still what works.
Yep.
This is true.